You know how you learn how to juggle? Practice. The way you do well on a standardized math test? Practice. Today I'm going to do the second half of an ASVAB test. The first half of the test will be in a previous video. I'll put a link to it right here. This is the second half of the test right here. Paper and pencil in front of you. Do the problems before I do them, and then see how I do them. You can also get this book and follow along in this book if you want. Let's get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get started on these problems right here. The first 15 problems in this ASVAB arithmetic reasoning test are in a previous video. I'll put a link to that video in the description. What I was doing is I'm going through a practice arithmetic reasoning math exam for the ASVAB military placement exam. I'm going to do that kind of as a placeholder to see how well you do on this exam. If you don't do well on this exam, I'm going to put in fill-in videos on how to cover all of the topics. What I would do right now, well, I'd certainly go back and watch the first 15 problems and do those first. And then I would always have a notebook in front of you and a pencil and a paper. Watch a little bit of the video, pause it, read the problem, do the problem the best you can. Think if you could figure it out, unpause the video and watch how I do the problem. You might pick up some tips and tricks on how I do the problem. There are 30 problems here. You have 36 minutes, so that's about a minute per problem. They are no calculator problems, so you got to see the trick and you got to go pretty quickly. A couple things you really want to do is mark up the exam as much as you can. That prevents careless mistakes. It also draws your eyes to the important features. If you have time left, you go back and all your work's there. You don't have to start all over again. If you're doing the exam on the computer, you do that with your note paper. You're still allowed scratch paper. Number your scratch paper. Keep it pretty well organized. So mark it up as number one. Number two is always glance down at your answers. You might be killing yourself to find the right fraction, and all of a sudden the answers are all percent. So glance down to the answers to see, what is it that we're looking for. Then if you can eliminate any answers that don't make sense, that's the first thing you do. And you're also trying to look in the problem to see what are they actually testing you on. So what am I given? What is it that they're actually asking me for? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Pause the video, do number 16, unpause it, and I'll go ahead and watch me do the solution. So if a gas tank could hold 28 gallons, so that's my key number here. How many gallons does it contain when it's 3/4 full? So I got 28 gallons. I want to know, so what it's asking me is, it's not full of 28. It only wants 3/4 of that. So it's really 28 times 3/4. 4 goes into 28 7 times. 7 times 3, 21. Correct answer D. Number 17, Ethan needs 75% average in his writing class to pass. He's taken 4 exams and he earned a 68, a 72, an 85, a 90, and he has a minimum score on the 5th exam, has to be above that. So I don't know what that exam is. I'm going to call it X. All of these added up, divided by 5, have to be above a 75. I think let's just add these up and see what we have. 8 and 2 is 10, 15. Carry the 1. 1 and 6, 7. 7 and 7, 14. 14 and 8, 22. 22 plus 9, 31. So I got 315 plus X has to be greater than, but we're just going to set it equal to 75 times 5, right? Because there are 5 exams. So 75 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2, 35 plus 2, 375. So 315 plus that 5th exam has to average 75 with a weight of 5. So 375. Solving for X, I subtract 315 from both sides. And I see that X by itself is equal to 60. So he can get as low as 60% and still pass the test. Number 18, a chemical solution contains 6% alcohol. If there are 24 milliliters of alcohol, what is the volume of the solution? Well, 6% times some big number equals 24, right? 6% times some number. So first thing I do is I take that 6%, convert it to a decimal, so it's here. This is like an arrow saying go over 2, 1, 2. So that's 0.06. So I want to know how many times 0.06 goes into 24. So 0.06 goes into 24. I move it over 1, 2, 1, 2. How many times does 6 go into 2400? 6 goes into 24, 4. You look over here and see if any numbers start with 4. There's only one solution, so it's going to have to be 400 milliliters is the correct solution. But if I continue my division, 24, 0, 0, doesn't go, bring down the next. So I have 400 milliliters right there. Okay, number 19, the average of 5 consecutive numbers. So I have 5 numbers. Consecutive means in a row. They average out to 36. What's the smallest number? Let's see here. Well, we could write this out. We got 36. Probably going to have to go down 2 and up 2. Or you could just look at these solutions and know what is the smallest number. Well, it's going to have to be smaller than 36. There's only one number within reason that's below 36, and that's 34. So I could just know that my answer is C. But let's write it out. I have 36. One number down, 35. One number up. So there's 3 numbers. One number down, 34. Or 2 numbers down, 38. They're consecutive. The lowest consecutive number is 34. Answer C right here. All right, number 20. Which of the following is equivalent to 2/5? That's a fraction. I think of that fraction like this, and it falls over this way. So it falls over, and you're saying 5 into 2. Let me glance down at my answers. We're looking for decimal equivalence. 5 does not go into 2. So I got to put a decimal there, add a 0 to it, 2.0. 5 does go into 24 times. The decimal goes straight up. Correct answer, answer C, 0.4. Number 21, a tree 32 feet tall, so I got to draw this out, casts a shadow 12 feet long. Jack is 6 feet tall. How long is Jack's shadow? So these are the same angles because the sun's going to cast the exact same shadow. So they'll be same angles because you're creating triangles with same angles. They're going to be similar triangles. Similar triangles, the ratios of sides are the same. So I know that 32 is to 12 as 6 is to what? Let's look at that again. So 32, the height of the tree, is equal to the height of the person. So they have to both be in the top. The shadow of 12 on the bottom has to be the same as the shadow down here. So these have to be similar and these similar. Now that I have one ratio equal to another ratio, I could cross multiply, say this times this is equal to that times that. So 6 times 12 is 72. 32 times x is 32x. Then I'm going to get x by itself. I divide both sides by 32. And I have 72 divided by 32 is equal to x. So the shadow is 72 over 32. Let me look over at my answers here. I could see it's going to go in there. 2 times would be 64. So it's a little bit more than 2. I'm going to look over at my answers. And I can see there's only one value a little bit more than 2, and that's answer A, 2 1/4 feet. The other way to do that is I could go 32 into 72. Remember that fraction falls over that way. 32 goes into 72 twice. Give me 64. 72 minus 64 is 8. Bring down the 0. 32 goes into 80 twice, so it's going to be 2.2. That's going to give me 64. I could keep going down, but I could just look up there. There's only one answer with 2.2 in there. So big ideas here. First, you have to know that that sun's going to cast the same shadow on both of them. So these angles are congruent. So the triangles are similar, meaning that if angles are congruent, the ratios of sides are the same. So then I set up one ratio equal to another proportion, cross multiply, solve for the unknown. Number 22, 15% of what number is equal to 75? First thing, we'd convert a decimal to a percent. I think of this thing as like an arrow, shooting it over 1, 2 places. So this is 0.15. 0.5 of what number, so I don't know what that number is equal to 75. So all I'm doing here is converting that percent to a decimal, 0.15. Then I'm converting that sentence to an equation. So 0.15 of what number, I don't know what it is, so I call it my variable x, is equal to 75. So that means some large number times 15% of it is equal to 75. Let me glance down here. I could know that it's not going to be those two because it's going to be a really big number, which 15% of it's going to be equal to 75. So now I want to solve for x, get x, my unknown, by itself. I divide both sides by 0.15, divide this side by 0.15 as well. Remember that fraction falls over that way, so I want to know how many times 0.15 goes into 75. The way I divide fractions is I turn this into a non-decimal. I'm sorry, the way I divide decimals is I move this over 1, 2. Well, if I'm going to move that over 1, 2, I got to move it over here twice 2. Here's where it starts, over 1, 2. So it's going to be 7,500. So 15 into 75. 5 times 10 is 50 plus 25. So this is 5. I could stop right there and see I have a 500. It has to be that. 5 times 15 is 75. Bring down the zeros. 0, 0. And I have the correct answer. Answer D, 500. 5 years ago, Amy was 3 times as old as Mike was. If Mike is 10 years old now, how old is Amy now? This is a hard one if you can't. This is really all about decoding. So we got a bunch of scenarios here. We have Amy and Mike, and we have Amy and Mike today. So this is their ages today, and then this is their ages 5 years ago. So I'm going to set up like a chart. This is a tricky one. So 5 years ago, Amy was 3 times as old as Mike. So whatever Mike is, Amy is 3 times Mike's age. If Mike is 10 years old now, so Mike today is 10, how old is Amy today? So this is what I'm really looking for right here. So if Mike is 10 years old today, 5 years ago, he would be 5 years less, so 10 minus 5 is 5. 5 years ago, Amy would be 3 times as old as this 5-year-old. So here, Amy's equal to 15. 5 years later, Amy's 5 years older than that, where Amy is 20 today. Correct answer, answer D. That's a really hard one. It's all about decoding it. I think the only way you could kind of figure one of those out is by creating a chart like this. It's a hard one. I think this is the best way to do it. Number 24, John traveled. So John traveled 150 kilometers in 6 hours. And Alice traveled 140 kilometers in 4 hours. Again, all I'm doing is translating those words into either pictures or numbers I could understand. What is the ratio of the average speed of John to the average speed of Alice? So I want John to Alice. So I want this number divided by this number. So I got 150 over 6 divided by 140 over 4. So I have a fraction divided by a fraction. Look over here. I don't really see anything jumping right out at me. I could reduce these fractions quite a bit and probably figure it out. Another way I could do it too is saying I got this fraction divided by this fraction. So I got 150 over 6 divided by 140 over 4. Well, the way I divide fractions, I multiply by the reciprocal. So I have 150 over 6 times that thing flipped over, the reciprocal, 4 over 140. Now I can start reducing fractions. 3 goes into here twice. 3 goes into there 50 times. What else we got? 2 goes into here once. 2 goes into here twice. 2 goes into here 70 times and into here once. Now I got 50 over 70. Well, 10 will go into here to give me 5. 10 will go into here to give me 7. Those are primes, so I have a ratio of 5 to 7. Answer C right there. Not an easy problem. A few different ways to do it. You could have simplified this first and then simplified this and then maybe figured it out from there. But easier to know that dividing fractions is multiplying by the reciprocal and then reducing from there. Number 25, you might want to take a break, pause the video, stand up, stretch your legs, juggle or something, get some blood flowing, and then come back to it. Again, remember the best way to do this, have paper and pencil in front of you, preferably with the book bought online so you can follow right away. Pause the video, do the problem, unpause the video, and watch how I do it. If you like the videos, please go ahead and hit the like button. That helps me out a lot, helps me keep making them. And then also, if you're new to the channel, think about subscribing. Number 25, 12 less than twice a positive integer. So we're just going to figure this out right here. So twice a positive integer, let's call it that, 2x, right? Twice a positive integer is 80. So I got the is equals 80, and then 12 from here, right? 12 less than twice a positive integer is 80. Solve this equation, I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So I have 2x, add 12, those cancel, add 12 to this side, 92. Divide both sides by 2, right? That'll give me x by itself. Half of 92 is 46. Correct answer, answer A right there. Number 26, if a gas tank can hold 28 gallons, so I got that written down, how many gallons does it contain when it is 3/4 full? So completely full is 28 gallons. I don't want it all the way full. I want to know how many gallons when it is 3/4 of the way full. So I could just take that fraction and multiply it by that. I could just multiply across the top and reduce, or I could reduce now. 4 goes into 4 one time. 4 goes into 28 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. How many gallons does it hold when it's 3/4 full? 21 makes good sense, so answer D right there. Number 27, Jack earns $6.16 for 44 hours. So he makes $616 per 44 hours, and then is paid 1.5 times after that 44 hours. He needs $826. So if he works 44 hours, he makes $616. He needs that amount. He needs over $200 more. Well, this is obviously not going to be it. That one we probably cross out, but I think we're going to have to figure this one out. Let's figure out how much he can make per hour first. So again, that fraction falls over this way. 44 goes into 616. Well, goes into 61 one times, 44. 61 minus 44 is 17. 176. I bet that'll go in there evenly. 44 times 4, 160 plus 16, 176. So it's 4. So Jack makes $14 per hour. So that's how much he makes per hour. That's what he has for the first 44 hours. After those 44 hours, he makes time and a half. So take 14 times time and a half. Half of 14 is 7. So time is 14. Half is 7. So he makes $21 an hour is time and a half. So he makes $21 an hour after 44 hours. So I got to figure out the difference between 826 and 616. All right, that's going to be 0. That's going to be 1. So he needs to make $210 in overtime at $21 an hour, right? So he's got to make 210 bucks at 21 bucks an hour. That's his overtime rate. So that means he's got to work 210 divided by 21, 10 hours more than usual. Well, his 44 hours gets him to 616. 10 more than that 44 gives him 54 hours right there. Pretty long week to pay the bills. All right, 28. What is 420.756 rounded to the nearest hundredths place? This always seems a little weird, but this is the tens, 1/10. This is 1/100ths, 1/1000ths, right? So I got to round it to this 5. 6 is above 5, so that's going to push it up. So it's going to round to 0.76. So 420.76, answer C right there. Number 29, we're coming to a close. You're doing great if you're still here. And if you're not here, I guess you don't hear me anyway. 29, a shirt costing 300 bucks is discounted 15%. Convert that, you know, this arrow shooting it over twice, 1, 2, so 0.15. After a month, the shirt is discounted another 15%, another 0.15. Which of the following expressions can be used to find the selling price of the shirt? So it's 300 bucks minus 15%. That's going to be a new number. Then I take that new number and then again subtract that 15%. So 15% from 100 is 85. So, right, 100 minus the 15 gives me 0.85. So I got to remember, I'm going to take the amount of it times 85. That's going to give me a new answer. I take that and I multiply it by that 85 again. So that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. This will be, no, that doesn't work. So this one does work right here. So what I'm saying is the original price times the amount I'm going to pay for it. That's going to give me that new number. This is going to be that new number. That new number times the new price I pay for it. So I have to compound the discount because I take that discount on the new price. So correct answer, answer D right there. Okay, number 30, last one, the mean of 50 tests. So that means n is equal to 50. The number of tests you have was calculated as 90. But it turned out that one of the scores was misread at 94, but it was 69. So how much is that going to affect the mean? Well, I misread a 94, and it was actually a 69. So that's going to be 70 to 90. What is that, 25? So I misread it by 25. How much of the effect, if there are 50 tests, is that going to have? Well, 25 off of 50 tests is going to have a very small effect. In fact, it's going to be 25 of the 50 tests. So it's going to affect the overall average by 1/2 of a point. So the original test scores were calculated at 90. I made this mistake by 25 points on only one of the tests over the 50 tests. So I got to bring the actual average down by 1/2 to give me 89.5 right there. All right, well, there it is, practice test. Hopefully you did well on this test. If you didn't do as well as you wanted to do on this practice test, I'm going to go back through this whole booklet and kind of focus on different sections so you could hone those skills. I appreciate you watching. Any questions at all, please post them in the comments. I'll try and answer them as quick as I can. All right, keep studying.